The massive alien fleet filled the viewport of the HMS Tenacity like a swarm of angry wasps. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the enemy ships move into attack formation. They looked like dark, sharp-edged crystals against the star-filled background, their hulls gleaming with an unnatural purple shine that spoke of technology far beyond anything humanity had ever created. Or so they thought. "Sir, they're broadcasting again," said Tom from the communication station. The young officer's voice was steady, but his fingers trembled slightly as they moved across his console. Walker nodded. "Let's hear what they have to say this time." The alien voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfectly translated English that somehow made their words even more insulting. "Human vessel, your continued resistance is both foolish and amusing. Our scans show your ship relies on primitive combustion engines and basic particle weapons. Surrender now, and we will make your extinction quick and painless." Walker allowed himself a small smile. The alien scans showed exactly what humanity wanted them to see. The Tenacity's outer hull was deliberately designed to mask its true nature, covered in fake engine ports and dummy weapon systems that gave off all the signatures of a relatively primitive spaceship. 37 ships, Captain," reported Lisa from the sensor station. "All capital class or above. The smallest one is twice our size." She paused, checking her readings. "They're moving to surround us." The bridge crew watched as the alien vessels spread out in a sphere formation, cutting off any possible escape route. To them, the Tenacity must have looked like a cornered animal, alone, outnumbered, and hopelessly outgunned, the last defender of a dying world. Earth burned behind them, its once blue skies now stained with the smoke of destroyed cities. The alien fleet had arrived 3 days ago, brushing aside humanity's best defenses like they were nothing more than annoying insects. Space stations were vaporized. Orbital platforms were torn apart. The combined might of Earth's space navy was reduced to floating debris in less than 6 hours. Only the Tenacity remained, holding position above what was left of the North American continent. As far as the aliens knew, it was humanity's last pathetic attempt at resistance, a single outdated vessel trying to defend a planet that was already lost. "Sir," Tom called out, his voice tighter than before. "Message from Command Bunker Alpha. It's coded urgent." Walker turned away from the viewport. "Put it through to my station." The message was brief, just 4 words that made Walker's heart beat faster. "Ghost Protocol is ready." He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. The Tenacity wasn't just humanity's last ship, it was humanity's last hope, the result of a secret project that had been in development for over a decade. While the world built obvious space stations and conventional warships, a hidden team of scientists led by Dr. Mary Thompson had been working on something revolutionary. "All stations, battle stations," Walker commanded. His voice was calm but carried an edge of steel that made every crew member sit up straighter. "Begin power-up sequence for all systems. Real ones this time." Screens around the bridge flickered as dummy readings were replaced with actual system status displays. Behind the false hull panels, cutting-edge technology began to hum to life. The quantum core, hidden in the very heart of the ship, started its activation sequence. The alien fleet drew closer, probably expecting the Tenacity to either try a suicidal attack or turn and run. They had seen this scenario play out countless times across countless worlds, a desperate last stand by a primitive species that didn't know when to give up. "They're charging weapons," Lisa reported. "All ships. They're taking their time about it." There was disgust in her voice. "They're toying with us." Walker nodded grimly. "Let them enjoy themselves while they can." Status of the quantum core. 70% and climbing, responded Bill from engineering. The older engineer's voice carried a note of excitement. "All systems are green. The masking field is holding. They still can't see what we're really packing." The alien commander's voice came through again, tripping with mock sympathy. Your ship's power readings are barely enough to maintain life support. Your weapons couldn't dent the hull of our smallest vessel. Why throw away your lives? Why not accept the inevitable with dignity?" Walker gestured to Tom. "Open a channel." When Tom nodded, Walker spoke clearly and firmly. "This is Captain James Walker of the HMS Tenacity. You're right about one thing. This ends today. But not the way you think." He could almost hear the alien commander's amusement. Brave words from a dead species. "Very well, Captain. Die with your irrelevant honor intact. All ships, target their vessel. Let's make this quick. I want to be finished with this backward planet by dinner time." "Quantum core at 95%, Bill reported. "Ready on your command, sir." Walker watched as the alien ships began to glow with deadly energy, their weapon ports brightening like purple stars about to go nova. In moments, they would fire enough firepower to turn the Tenacity into atoms. "Sir," Lisa's voice was urgent. "They're starting their firing sequence. 20 seconds until impact." Walker allowed himself another small smile. "You know what humanity's greatest strength is?" he asked his crew. "It's not our technology, or our resources, or even our determination. It's our ability to look weak right up until the moment we show our true strength." "Quantum core at full power," Bill announced. "All systems ready. 10 seconds to impact." Walker straightened his uniform. "Disable the masking field. Let's show them what they're really dealing with." The false hull readings disappeared, revealing the Tenacity's true nature. The quantum core's energy signature burst forth like a newborn sun, its readings so powerful that the alien ship's sensors must have been overwhelmed. 5 seconds. "Tactical. Target all hostile vessels," Walker commanded. "Full quantum spread. Let's show them exactly how primitive we are." The alien weapons fired, 37 beams of destructive energy racing toward the Tenacity from all directions. But the quantum core was already responding, its impossible calculations reshaping reality itself around the ship. In the last moment before the alien weapons struck, Walker thought about all the worlds these invaders had conquered, all the civilizations they had crushed, all the species they had driven to extinction. They had never faced anything like what humanity had created. They had never imagined that their greatest defeat would come at the hands of a species they considered barely worth noticing. "Let's make them remember this day," Walker said quietly. "The day they learned to fear the ones they laughed at." The alien weapons reached the Tenacity just as the quantum core reached full power, and the real battle was about to begin. The aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that looks like prey. Time seemed to slow down as the alien weapons converged on the Tenacity. The purple beams of energy stretched across space like deadly fingers reaching for their prey. But in the split second before impact, something impossible happened. The quantum core activated. Deep within the ship's heart, Dr. Mary Thompson's creation came alive. The core didn't just process information. It processed reality itself. Billions of calculations happened in microseconds, each one exploring a different possible future, each one finding a way to turn certain death into survival. "Core response at maximum," Bill shouted from his station. The engineering displays showed energy readings that shouldn't have been possible. "The veil is forming." Around the Tenacity, space itself seemed to ripple. The alien energy beams struck not the ship's hull, but a barrier of pure probability. The veil, as the crew called it, wasn't a shield in any traditional sense. It was a field where quantum uncertainty became absolute certainty, and right now it was certain that the Tenacity would not be destroyed. The alien weapons didn't just bounce off. They ceased to exist. The veil calculated every possible path those energy beams could take, and chose the one where they simply weren't there anymore. On the bridge, the crew watched in awe as their attackers' most powerful weapons vanished into nothing. "Impossible." The alien commander's voice crackled over the comm system. "Our scans. The energy readings. What are you?" Walker stood from his chair, his voice steady. "We are what you made us. Every species you've conquered, Every civilization you've destroyed. They all tried to match your technology. They tried to build bigger ships, stronger weapons, better shields. But humanity. He paused, watching as the alien fleet frantically began to recharge their weapons. We went in a different direction. Lisa's hands flew across her console. Sir, they're trying to adapt their weapons. Changing frequencies, power levels, trying to find a way through the veil. Let them try, Walker said. Tom, send them our response. All frequencies. The message that went out was simple. The complete technical analysis of their weapon systems, down to the smallest detail. The aliens weren't just failing to hurt the tenacity. The ship was reading and understanding their technology in real time. The quantum core is mapping their entire fleet, Bill reported with a hint of pride. Every ship, every system, every weakness. Dr. Thompson said it would work. But this is beyond anything we expected. The alien fleet's formation began to break. Some ships tried to maintain their attack positions, while others started to back away. Their perfect sphere of death was turning into a chaotic scramble as they faced something they couldn't understand. They're launching fighters, Lisa called out. Hundreds of them. Small craft might have a better chance of getting through the veil. Walker nodded. Time to show them what else we can do. Bill, power up the response systems. The quantum core hummed louder. It wasn't just defending now. It was learning, adapting, creating. For every fighter the aliens launched, the core calculated a counter. Small drones emerged from hidden bays in the Tenacity's hull, each one guided by a quantum probability field that made them nearly impossible to hit. Their fighters are firing, Lisa reported. But her worried tone quickly turned to amazement. But our drones, they're not even trying to dodge. They're in places where the shots aren't. The bridge crew watched as the impossible dance unfolded in space. The alien fighters, sleek and deadly, fired blast after blast at the Tenacity's drones. But the quantum-guided machines seemed to know where every shot would go before it was fired. They moved through gaps in the enemy formation that didn't exist until they needed them to exist. Sir, Tom's voice was filled with excitement. Dr. Thompson is requesting permission to initiate the next phase. The core has gathered enough data. Walker smiled. This was what they had been waiting for. Tell her she has a green light. Let's show them what happens when humanity decides to stop playing by the rules of normal physics. The quantum core's hum changed pitch. The veil, which had been simply defending the ship, began to pulse with new energy. The drones, which had been effortlessly avoiding alien fire, suddenly shifted from defense to attack. Look at these readings, Bill said in awe. The core isn't just predicting their movements anymore. It's predicting their predictions. It's calculating what they'll do when they try to calculate what we'll do. The alien fighters started dropping like flies. Their advanced targeting systems were useless against drones that existed in multiple probable locations at once. Their sophisticated shields meant nothing against weapons that struck from angles that shouldn't have existed. Their capital ships are changing formation again, Lisa reported. They're trying to retreat. All but the command ship. The alien commander's voice came through again, but this time the arrogance was gone, replaced by something close to fear. What kind of devils are you? This technology. It violates every law of physics we know. That's your problem, Walker responded. You thought you knew all the laws. Humanity looked at physics and asked, what if there's more? While you were building bigger guns, we were learning to reshape reality itself. The quantum core's calculations were reaching their peak. The veil wasn't just a shield anymore. It was becoming a weapon. Every piece of data the core had gathered about the alien fleet was being processed, analyzed, and turned into a strategy that existed in a space between possibility and certainty. Dr. Thompson reports the core is ready, Tom announced. All systems are synchronized. We can end this whenever you give the word, sir. Walker looked at the alien command ship, still holding its position while its fleet retreated. They had come to Earth expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had found something that turned their understanding of the universe upside down. "Send them one last message," Walker ordered. "Tell them, this is humanity's response to being underestimated. Remember it." The quantum core pulsed one final time. The veil expanded, not to defend, but to attack. In the space around the tenacity, probability itself became a weapon. Every weakness the core had detected, every flaw in the alien ship's design, every possible point of failure, all of them became certainties at once. The alien fleet didn't explode. They didn't break apart. Their ships simply found themselves existing in the one probability, out of countless billions, where their technology failed completely. Systems shut down. Weapons went dark. Shields vanished. And in that moment, as their mighty fleet drifted powerless in space, the aliens learned what humanity had discovered years ago. True power doesn't come from building bigger weapons. It comes from changing the rules of what's possible. The alien command ship hung motionless in space, its once mighty systems reduced to barely functioning backup power. Around it, the rest of the fleet drifted helplessly, their proud vessels now little more than expensive space debris. But Walker knew better than to celebrate too early. The aliens had conquered hundreds of worlds. They wouldn't give up after one setback. "Sir," Lisa called out, her eyes fixed on her sensor displays. "I'm detecting power spikes. They're rerouting everything they have left to their emergency systems." The alien commander's voice crackled through the comm system, rage replacing his earlier fear. "You think you've won. We have conquered galaxies. We have burned 1,000 worlds. We will not be defeated by a single ship from a backward planet." Walker watched as the alien vessels began to glow with a different kind of energy. "Bill, what are we looking at?" "They're bypassing their main systems," Bill replied, his fingers dancing across his engineering console. "Looks like they had a backup power source we didn't detect. It's not like anything the core has seen before." Suddenly, the alien ship's hulls began to crack open, revealing hidden compartments. From these openings emerged new weapons, crystalline structures that pulsed with an inner light that made the quantum core's readings spike wildly. "Ancient tech," Tom said, reading from his station. "The commander's broadcasting to his fleet. They're activating something called the World Breaker Protocol. Emergency weapons they haven't had to use in centuries." The alien commander's laughter filled the bridge. "You forced our hand, humans. These weapons ended the last species that dared to resist us. Their planet is now an asteroid field. Your clever tricks won't save you from weapons that existed before your species learned to make fire." Dr. Thompson's voice came through on the internal comm. "Captain, the quantum core is having trouble mapping these new weapons. They're operating on principles we haven't seen before." Walker gripped the arms of his command chair as the alien ships began to move again, their new weapons charging with terrible power. "Can the veil protect us?" "Yes and no," Thompson replied. "The core can't predict what these weapons will do, but it's adapting. Learning. Every second gives us more data. We just need to survive long enough to understand what we're facing." The first alien shot came without warning, a beam of energy that seemed to bend space itself. It struck the veil at an angle that shouldn't have been possible, slipping through gaps in probability that the quantum core hadn't known could exist. The tenacity shuddered for the first time since the battle began. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. "Hull breach in Section 7, Bill shouted. "The veil, it couldn't stop it completely. These weapons, they're not just energy. They're changing the rules of space around them." Walker stood from his chair. "Dr. Thompson, what are our options?" "The core is processing the attack," she responded, her voice tense but focused. "These weapons, they're incredible. They don't just fire energy. They temporarily rewrite the laws of physics in a localized area. But that means..." She trailed off, and Walker could almost hear her mind racing. "Means what, Doctor?" "They're doing what we do," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "Just primitively. Brutally. They're forcing reality to change. But the quantum core doesn't force anything. It works with probability, shapes it, guides it. And that gives us an advantage. More alien ships were firing now, their ancient weapons lighting up space with impossible energies. But the veil was changing, adapting. Where the first shot had torn through it, the next 10 found it stronger, more resistant. The core is learning their pattern, Thompson explained. They can only rewrite physics in certain ways. It's like they're using sledgehammers where we use sculpting tools. Powerful, yes, but predictable. Walker watched as the veil began to pulse with new energy patterns. Can we counterattack? Better than that, Thompson replied. Captain, request permission to try something that might end this fight right now. These weapons destroyed an entire civilization, Doctor. What can we possibly do against that? Those weapons work by forcing reality to change, Thompson said. But reality doesn't like to be forced. There's always pushback, always a cost. The quantum core can see it now. Microfractures in space-time around their ships. They're powerful, but they're dangerous to the users too. Lisa's voice cut through the conversation. Multiple weapons locking on. They're going to fire everything at once. Dr. Thompson, Walker said, whatever you're going to do it now. The quantum core surged with power. The veil changed again. But this time it wasn't just defending. It was reaching out, touching those microfractures Thompson had detected, gently nudging probability in just the right way. The aliens fired. 37 ancient weapons, powerful enough to break worlds, all targeting the tenacity at once. The energy they released could have vaporized a small moon. But the tenacity wasn't there to be hit. The quantum core had calculated the one probability, out of countless quintillions, where all that energy would flow back through those microfractures, following paths of least resistance that led right back to their source. The alien ships had just enough time to realize what was happening. Their own weapons, their unstoppable planet-killing weapons, turned against them not by force but by the gentle manipulation of probability itself. Amazing, Thompson whispered over the comm. Their weapons tried to rewrite physics. But you can't break the rules without consequences. The quantum core just suggested to reality that it might want to snap back to normal. All we had to do was make sure their ships were in the way when it did. Walker watched as the alien fleet's mighty weapons began to tear themselves apart, not with the violence of an explosion, but with the inexorable certainty of cause and effect. The alien commander's final transmission was barely audible through the static. Impossible. We had the ultimate weapons. How could you? That was your mistake, Walker replied, though he wasn't sure the aliens could still hear him. You thought the ultimate weapon was something that could break the universe. We discovered something much more powerful, a way to work with it instead. One by one, the ancient weapons collapsed in on themselves, taking the alien ships with them. Not destroyed, but gently edited out of probability by their own attempts to force reality to obey them. The battle was over. Where the mighty alien fleet had been, there was now only empty space and a lesson about the true nature of power. Humanity hadn't won by building bigger guns or stronger shields. They had won by understanding that the universe itself was on the side of those who worked with it, not against it. As the crew of the Tenacity began damage assessments and system checks, Walker looked out at the stars. He wondered how many other alien civilizations would need to learn this lesson. How many would come to Earth expecting to find primitive humans with primitive technology, only to discover that true advancement wasn't about forcing your will on reality. It was about understanding that the greatest power comes from working with the very fabric of existence itself. And humanity, for all its apparent primitive nature, had mastered that art in ways their would-be conquerors had never imagined possible. The silence that followed the battle felt heavier than any combat. The Tenacity's crew worked quietly at their stations, running diagnostics and checking systems, still processing what they had just accomplished. They had faced the most powerful weapons in the galaxy and survived by turning physics itself against their enemies. A soft, alert tone broke the silence. "Sir," Tom called from communications, "we're picking up new signals. Hundreds of them, coming from all directions." Walker tensed. "More hostile ships?" "No, sir. They're transmissions. From everywhere. From every species in the galaxy that these aliens conquered. They saw everything. The quantum core was broadcasting the whole battle without us even realizing it." The main screen came alive with messages in dozens of languages, all being translated in real time. The quantum core, even after the strain of battle, was processing and interpreting every signal flawlessly. "They're calling us liberators," Tom said, his voice filled with wonder. "The aliens, they called themselves the Eternal Empire. They've ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. No one ever beat them. No one ever even came close. Until today." Dr. Thompson's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, you need to see something. The Corps made a discovery during that last exchange. Something about the Eternal Empire that explains everything." "On my way," Walker replied. He turned to his second in command. "Robert, you have the bridge." The walk to the quantum core chamber took only a few minutes, but it gave Walker time to really look at his ship. The Tenacity's corridors were different now. Where there had once been simple metal walls, now there were subtle patterns of light, the quantum field that permeated the ship becoming visible as it processed reality in ways no human mind could fully grasp. The core chamber itself was a marvel of engineering hidden behind a deliberately simple design. At its center, suspended in a field of pure probability, was what looked like a small crystal sphere. But as Walker watched, he could see that it wasn't really there. Or rather, it was there in ways that human eyes weren't meant to understand. Dr. Thompson stood at her control station, her eyes fixed on readings that seemed to shift and change even as she looked at them. "Captain, remember how their ancient weapons tried to rewrite physics? Well, the Corps found out why they had that technology, why they were so sure they were superior to everyone else." She pressed a few controls, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed what looked like a timeline, but instead of a straight line, it was a complex web of possibilities and probabilities. "The Eternal Empire isn't just old," Thompson explained. "They're from a different universe, a previous one. They survived the death of their own reality and forced their way into ours when it was still young. That's why their technology seems to break physics. It was made for a universe with different rules." Walker stared at the display, trying to understand the implications. "How is that possible?" "They're ancient weapons," Thompson continued. "They're not weapons at all. They're tools they use to force their way into our universe, modified for combat. Every time they use them, they're essentially trying to make our reality work like their old one did. That's why they're so destructive. They're literally trying to break our universe to make it match their memory of home." The display shifted, showing the battle they had just fought, but from the quantum core's perspective. Walker could see how the alien weapons had tried to tear holes in reality itself, trying to make space work the way it had in their original universe. "But we did something they never expected," Thompson said, a note of pride in her voice. "Instead of trying to break reality, we learned to work with it. The quantum core doesn't force anything. It suggests, it guides, it finds the paths that are already there. That's why we won. That's why we could turn their own weapons against them." A new alert sounded from Thompson's console. "And that's not all. Look at this. The Corps has finished analyzing their entire technological base. Everything they used, everything they built, it was all based on trying to force our universe to behave like their old one. They never adapted, never tried to understand the new rules. They just kept trying to make everything work the way it used to." Walker thought about this. 10,000 years of conquest, all because they couldn't accept that they were in a new reality with new rules. "Exactly," Thompson nodded. "And now we have a choice to make. The Corps has mapped out their entire empire, every world they conquered, every species they enslaved. We know where everything is, and more importantly, We know how to undo what they did. The display changed again, showing a map of the galaxy. Thousands of worlds were highlighted, each one under the control of the Eternal Empire. But now, with their main fleet destroyed and their weapons proven useless against quantum technology, they were vulnerable. The other species are already rising up. Tom's voice came through the intercom. The Eternal Empire's grip is breaking. But they're asking for our help. They want to know if Earth will lead them, help them rebuild. Walker looked at the quantum core, pulsing gently in its chamber of probability. Can we? After what Earth has been through, can we take on that responsibility? Thompson smiled. Captain, Earth was never helpless. We let the Eternal Empire think we were primitive because it gave us time to perfect this technology. Now we can help these other species understand what we learned. That true power isn't about forcing your will on reality. It's about understanding it, working with it, becoming part of the natural flow of the universe instead of trying to break it. New messages were pouring in from across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for thousands of years were throwing off their chains. The Eternal Empire's remaining forces were surrendering or fleeing, their unshakable belief in their own superiority finally broken by a single ship from a supposedly primitive world. Sir, Robert's voice came through the intercom. The quantum core is picking up something else. The Eternal Empire had research facilities scattered across the galaxy, places where they stored technology from their original universe. If they fall into the wrong hands. Walker nodded. Then we make sure they don't. The tenacity was built to protect Earth, but now we have a bigger mission. We need to help these species rebuild. Yes, but we also need to make sure no one else tries to break reality the way the Eternal Empire did. Looking at the quantum core, Walker could almost see the infinite possibilities spreading out before them. Humanity had created something that didn't just understand the universe, it worked in harmony with it. And now they had the chance to share that understanding with a galaxy that had only known force and domination for 10,000 years. Send a message to Earth, Walker ordered. Tell them the war is over. But our real work is just beginning. It's time to show the galaxy that the greatest power doesn't come from breaking the rules of reality. It comes from understanding them well enough to know which ones can bend, and which ones are better left alone. The quantum core pulsed in agreement, its gentle light promising a future where intelligence and understanding would replace force and domination. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had discovered. That true advancement comes not from fighting against the nature of reality, but from becoming one with it. 3 months after the battle, the Tenacity hovered in orbit around a world once called Home Base Alpha by the Eternal Empire. Now it was being returned to its original name, Bluria, by the blue-skinned species who had called it home before the Empire's arrival thousands of years ago. They weren't the only ones celebrating a homecoming. Across the galaxy, hundreds of species were reclaiming their worlds, their cultures, their freedom. Captain Walker stood on the observation deck, watching the celebrations happening on the planet below. Ships from 24 different worlds had gathered in the system, bringing representatives to what was being called the First Galactic Congress. Earth, once thought to be a primitive backwater, was now at the center of a new era. Quite a view, isn't it? Dr. Thompson said as she joined him. The past months had been busy for her, explaining quantum technology to scientists from across the galaxy. Some understood it quickly. Others struggled with the concept that working with reality was more powerful than trying to break it. Walker nodded. I keep thinking about how different this could have been. If the Eternal Empire had recognized what we were building, if they'd struck before the Tenacity was ready. But they didn't, Thompson reminded him. Their greatest weakness was their absolute certainty. They were so sure they understood everything that they never considered they might be wrong. A soft tone indicated someone was requesting entry to the observation deck. The door slid open to reveal Tom, holding a data tablet. Captain, the final reports from Earth. The rebuilding is ahead of schedule. The quantum technologies we've shared have made things much easier. Walker took the tablet, scrolling through images of cities being reconstructed at impossible speeds. Quantum-guided construction drones worked in perfect harmony, their movements guided by probability fields that eliminated waste and maximized efficiency. What might have taken decades was being accomplished in months. "And the message we've been waiting for?" Walker asked. Tom smiled. "Just came through. The World Council has approved it. Earth is ready to broadcast to the entire galaxy." The door opened again, and this time it was Robert who entered. "Sir, the ambassadors are waiting in the conference room. They're eager to hear Earth's decision." Walker took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as teachers. Earth was about to offer something no species had shared before, a fundamentally new way of understanding reality itself. The conference room was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that special quantum translation fields were needed just to help them perceive one another. But they all fell silent as Walker entered. "Representatives of the free worlds," Walker began, "Earth has made its decision. The technology that defeated the Eternal Empire will be shared with all species who wish to learn. Not as a weapon, but as a tool. A new way of understanding our universe." Murmurs spread through the gathering. An ambassador with iridescent scales stood. "This quantum technology. Many believe you should keep it for yourselves. It gives your species unimaginable power. Why would you share it?" Walker smiled. "Because that's the lesson the Eternal Empire never learned. True power doesn't come from hoarding knowledge or forcing your will on others. It comes from understanding, from cooperation, from recognizing that we're all part of the same reality, and we all have a role in shaping it." He activated the display at the center of the conference table. Above it appeared a holographic representation of the quantum core, its gentle pulsing light illuminating the faces of the gathered ambassadors. "This technology doesn't force the universe to obey us," Walker explained. "It learns, it adapts, it works with the natural flow of probability. And in doing so, it accomplishes what brute force never could. That's the message Earth wants to share with the galaxy. We don't need to break reality to master it. We just need to understand it better." Another ambassador, this one a being of pure energy contained in a specialized field, spoke next. "But the remaining forces of the Eternal Empire still threaten many worlds. They still have weapons that can destroy entire planets. How can your philosophy protect us from that?" Instead of answering directly, Walker nodded to Dr. Thompson. She stepped forward, her hands moving through the holographic display, reshaping it to show the galaxy as the quantum core perceived it, not just as points of light, but as interconnected probabilities, each influencing the others. "The Eternal Empire's weapons were powerful because they tried to force our universe to behave like their old one," Thompson explained. "But that approach has a fundamental flaw. Our reality resists being changed that way. It pushes back. That's why their weapons were so destructive. They were fighting against the very nature of existence itself." She shifted the display again, showing how the quantum technology worked with those same forces instead of against them. "We're not proposing to give you new weapons," Thompson continued. "We're offering to teach you a new way of thinking. The quantum principles we've discovered can be applied to everything, from medicine to agriculture, from communication to defense. And yes, when necessary, to protect yourselves from those who still think force is the answer." The room was silent as the implications sank in. Earth wasn't offering to become the new ruling power. It wasn't planning to replace the Eternal Empire with a human empire. It was offering something much more revolutionary. A galaxy where each species could develop along its own path, guided by a shared understanding of how reality truly worked. "There's something else you should know," Walker added. "The Tenacity wasn't our only ship with this technology. It was simply the first one ready when the Eternal Empire attacked. We could have built a fleet of them. We could have conquered the galaxy ourselves after defeating the Empire." He paused, letting the statement hang in the air. "But that was never our intention. The quantum core showed us countless possible futures, and in every one where domination was the goal, it ended in tragedy. Not just for the dominated, but for the dominators as well. That's another truth the Eternal Empire never grasped. When you try to control everything, you ultimately lose control of yourself. The holographic display changed one last time, showing a simple message in the languages of all present. Cooperation, not domination. Understanding, not force. This is humanity's message to the galaxy, Walker said, his voice firm but kind. We invite all of you to join us in exploring what's possible when we work with reality instead of against it, when we share knowledge instead of hoarding it, when we see diversity as strength, not weakness. The response wasn't immediate. Some ambassadors remained skeptical. Others were openly enthusiastic. But as the conference continued, a consensus began to form. Whatever their differences, whatever their histories, they all shared the same universe, and humanity had shown them a new way to understand it. As the gathering concluded, Walker found himself back on the observation deck, watching the stars. Robert joined him quietly. "Do you think it will work?" Robert asked. "This galaxy has known nothing but the Eternal Empire's rule for 10,000 years. Can it really change so quickly?" Walker thought about the quantum core and everything it had taught them about probability and impossibility. "It won't be quick," he admitted. "And it won't be easy. The Empire hurt a lot of worlds, left deep scars. Some species will choose revenge. Others will try to build their own empires. We can't control what everyone does with the knowledge we share." "Then why share it at all?" Robert wondered. "Because the alternative is to become what we defeated," Walker replied. "The moment we decide we know better than everyone else, that we have the right to control the future of the galaxy, that's the moment we start down the same path the Eternal Empire took, and we've seen where that leads." Below them, the lights of Luria sparkled as night fell across its restored cities. New quantum technologies were already helping repair the damage of centuries of exploitation. Not by forcing the world to change, but by working with its natural systems, guiding them toward healing. "The universe doesn't need a new empire," Walker said softly. "It needs a new understanding. And that's what Earth can offer. Not control, not dominance, just a better way of being part of reality, together." As the Tenacity prepared to depart for its next mission, a message from Earth was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. It was simple, powerful, and unmistakable in its meaning. "We could have built a fleet of these. We only needed one. Remember that before you try to become the next empire, and remember that we're here to help you build something better instead."